Hello, everybody. Listen to me. Greatness is not some mystical gift only a few people get. It's not luck. It's not magic. It's not about being born with the right connections. Greatness is a decision you make every single day. See, some people think greatness is a destination, a trophy, a title, a paycheck. But I'm telling you, greatness is a lifestyle. It's about what you do when no one is watching, how you respond when the odds are stacked against you, and whether you're willing to pay the price when it's uncomfortable. I came from nothing, slept in abandoned buildings, no college degree at first. But I learned something: greatness doesn't care about where you start. It cares about how much you're willing to give. You can't fake it. You can't shortcut it. You gotta show up, push through, and commit even when it's painful. If you want greatness, stop asking for the easy route. Stop waiting for the right time. The right time is right now. And the moment you stop making excuses and start taking ownership, that's the moment greatness starts to grow in you. So the question is not do you want to be great? The question is, are you willing to sacrifice, to stay consistent, to refuse to quit until greatness becomes who you are? Purpose over popularity is not just a catchy phrase. It's the foundation for building a life of true greatness. I want you to think about this for a moment. How many times have you made a decision based on what other people might think? How many times have you adjusted your dreams, your goals, your actions just to avoid criticism or to win someone's approval? You see, the problem with living for popularity is that it's a moving target. People's opinions change like the wind. And if you build your life on their applause, you're going to spend your whole life chasing something that can vanish in an instant. Purpose, on the other hand, is solid. It's not dependent on likes, followers, or what's trending. Purpose is rooted in something deeper. Your values, your mission, your reason for waking up every morning and grinding even when nobody notices. When you operate from purpose, you don't get shaken as easily. The noise around you might be loud, but your inner voice is louder. And that's the key. You've got to get so clear on why you're doing what you're doing that no amount of praise or criticism can throw you off course. Purpose doesn't seek validation because it knows its own work. And here's the truth. Most people never tap into their full potential because they're too busy trying to be liked. They want to fit in. They want to avoid the discomfort of standing out. But greatness demands that you stand out. It demands that you do things differently. You can't be extraordinary if you're committed to being ordinary just to keep everyone comfortable. Let me break this down. When I first started speaking, I wasn't the polished, well-known Eric Thomas you see now. I didn't have a huge audience. I didn't have millions of views. And you know what? There were a lot of people who didn't get me. They didn't like my energy. They didn't like how loud I was. They didn't like my style. I could have toned it down to fit what they wanted. I could have changed my message to be more acceptable. But if I did that, I'd be killing my purpose. My purpose was to wake people up, to challenge them, to ignite a fire in them. And that required passion, volume, authenticity. If I had chosen popularity over purpose, I would have robbed myself and millions of people of the message that needed to be delivered exactly the way I was built to deliver it. Some of you right now are stuck because you're trying to please everybody. And I get it. We're human. We want to be liked. We want to be accepted. But here's the thing. Not everyone's supposed to like you. Not everyone's supposed to understand your journey. Some people are in your life just for a season, and their approval is not a requirement for your destiny. When you start living with purpose, you're going to lose some people. That's just reality. But what you'll gain is so much more valuable. Peace, clarity, self-respect, and the ability to make a real difference. Popularity is about being noticed. Purpose is about making an impact. There's a big difference. You can be popular and still be empty inside because popularity is shallow. It's built on perception. It's built on what people think they see, not on who you really are. Purpose is deep. It's not about what you look like. It's about what you stand for. And when you stand for something, you're going to attract the right people and repel the wrong ones. That's a good thing because you don't need a crowd. You need the right crew. People who believe in you, people who push you toward your goals, people who keep you grounded when the spotlight comes. Let's be real. The chase for popularity is exhausting. You're constantly checking numbers, constantly comparing yourself to others, constantly changing your approach to match the latest trend. And the moment you stop, you feel like you're falling behind. But when you're driven by purpose, you're not in a race with anyone else. You're running your own race at your own pace. You're not distracted by what everyone else is doing because you know exactly where you're going. And the funny thing is, when you focus on purpose, popularity often comes as a byproduct, but it's no longer the goal. You don't need it to validate you. You don't depend on it for your identity. Think about every person who's made a lasting mark on history. Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Steve Jobs. These people didn't set out to be popular. In fact, many of them faced heavy criticism, opposition, and even hate during their lifetimes. But they stayed committed to their purpose. And now, long after they're gone, their influence is still alive. That's the power of living for purpose over popularity. Your impact outlives the applause. Now, here's where it gets personal. Your purpose is not always going to be glamorous. It's not always going to come with recognition. Sometimes your purpose is going to lead you into seasons of obscurity, seasons where you feel unseen, seasons where the work you're doing doesn't seem to be paying off. But that's where your character is built. That's where you prove to yourself and to life that you're serious. Anybody can show up when the cameras are on, but purpose shows up when there's no audience. Purpose keeps going when the rewards are far off. And the people who live that way are the ones who eventually rise to greatness. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with being popular if it comes naturally as a result of your work. But it should never be the target. Because here's the truth. Popularity can disappear overnight. One wrong post, one bad rumor, one shift in public opinion, and it's gone. But purpose? Purpose will carry you through every storm. It will hold you steady when the ground shakes. It will keep you from quitting when the world says you should. Some of you are at a crossroads right now. You're being pulled between what's comfortable and what's meaningful. You're being tempted to take the easy road because it's the one that will get you quick approval. But I'm challenging you to choose the harder path, the one that's aligned with your mission, even if it's lonely at first, because that's the road that leads to greatness. And you can't fake your way there. You gotta ask yourself, if no one claps for me, will I still do it? If no one praises me, will I still show up? If no one recognizes my effort, will I still give my best? If the answer is yes, that's purpose. That's the kind of fuel that doesn't run out. That's the kind of drive that will separate you from everyone else. Here's the reality. The world doesn't need more people chasing clout. It needs more people chasing calling. It needs people who are willing to stand for truth, even when it's unpopular, who are willing to do what's right, even when it's inconvenient, who are willing to work for a cause bigger than themselves. And that, my friends, is what will drive your greatness further than any applause ever could. So today, make a decision. Stop building your life on the shaky foundation of popularity and start building it on the solid rock of purpose. Stop letting the opinions of people who don't live your life dictate the way you live it. Stop selling out your calling for temporary attention. Decide that you're going to live for something that matters, something that will still be standing when the noise fades. Because when you choose purpose over popularity, you're not just setting yourself up for success. You're setting yourself up for significance. And that's the difference between being remembered for a moment and being remembered forever. Greatness is not about being known by everyone. It's about being known for something that matters. And that starts with knowing your purpose, owning it, and never letting go, no matter who's watching. Discipline over motivation is one of the hardest lessons most people will ever learn, but it's the one that separates those who dream from those who actually do. See, motivation is a great starter. It's that rush you feel when you watch an inspiring video, when you hear a powerful speech, when you read a quote that lights you up inside. Motivation makes you want to get up early, work out, make the call, chase the goal. But here's the problem. Motivation is temporary. It's like a spark. It's bright and hot for a moment. But if you don't feed it, it burns out. And life, with all its challenges, is full of days when that spark just isn't there. If your success depends on you feeling motivated every day, you're already setting yourself up to fail. Discipline, though, discipline is a whole different game. Discipline is what shows up when motivation leaves. It's the steady engine that keeps moving even when the feelings are gone. Let's be real. There are days you're not going to feel like it. You won't feel like waking up early. You won't feel like studying. You won't feel like pushing through that workout, working on your side hustle, or putting in extra hours at your job. There are going to be days when your body says, stay in bed, your mind says, take it easy, and your heart says, I'm not in the mood. And on those days, motivation will be nowhere to be found. But discipline doesn't ask how you feel. Discipline doesn't care if you're in a mood. Discipline is the voice that says, we do this because we said we would. It's not negotiable. Most people fail because they're trying to run their lives on feeling. And feelings are unreliable. They change based on your mood, the weather, what someone said to you, how much sleep you got, or what happened that day. Discipline is not a feeling. It's a decision you made ahead of time. It's a system you commit to and follow regardless of circumstances. It's saying, this is what I'm going to do every day, and then doing it whether it's convenient or not. That's why disciplined people keep winning, because they're not waiting for the perfect moment. They create results by showing up when others quit. Think about elite athletes. Think about elite athletes. Do you really think they're motivated every single time they train? No way. There are days when they're sore, tired, and mentally drained, but they train anyway because their discipline is bigger than their feelings. Or look at entrepreneurs who build something massive from scratch. Do you think they only worked on days they were inspired? No, they worked through the boring days, the frustrating days, the days when nothing seemed to be moving forward. They stayed disciplined until the results showed up. The problem is we live in a culture that worships motivation but underestimates discipline. People chase that high. They go to events, read books, watch videos, looking for that emotional push. And there's nothing wrong with that. Motivation can get you started. But if you don't have discipline, you'll keep starting over and over again because you'll quit as soon as the excitement fades. Discipline is what gets you from start to finish. It's the bridge between your goals and your reality. Discipline is also a form of self-respect. When you tell yourself you're going to do something and then you actually do it, you build trust in yourself. You start believing that you can rely on you. But every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you skip the workout, avoid the work, ignore the plan, you weaken that trust. And when you don't trust yourself, it's hard to believe you can achieve anything significant. Discipline rebuilds that trust brick by brick. It says, I can count on me to show up no matter what. Let's be honest and glamorous, it's not always fun. Sometimes it's downright uncomfortable. It's waking up before the sun when your bed feels like the best place on earth. It's saying no to distractions when everyone else is saying yes. It's sticking to the plan when the results are invisible and the progress feels slow. But that's exactly why it works. Because most people aren't willing to do it. Discipline becomes your competitive advantage. If you're willing to stay consistent when others give in, you will outlast and outperform them every time. Here's something I've learned. The hardest part about discipline is not the action itself. It's the mental battle before the action. Your mind will come up with every excuse in the world. You can do it tomorrow. You've earned a break. It won't matter if you skip just this once. That's where people lose. They listen to the excuses instead of the commitment they made. But if you can train yourself to act before your mind talks you out of it, you win. You start to realize that you don't have to feel like doing something to do it. You just have to start. And the feeling often follows the action. Discipline is also contagious. The more you practice it in one area of your life, the more it spills over into others. If you get disciplined with your workouts, you'll find yourself becoming more disciplined with your work. If you stay consistent with your morning routine, you'll find yourself managing your time better throughout the day. Discipline breeds order, and order creates space for more productivity and focus. Before you know it, you've built a lifestyle that keeps you moving forward even on the toughest days. But here's the flip side. A lack of discipline is also contagious. Skip one day, and it becomes easier to skip the next. Break one promise to yourself, and soon it's a habit. Before you know it, you're back to where you started, wondering why nothing is changing. That's why discipline is not a one-time decision. It's a daily choice. You have to renew that commitment every single day, no matter what happened yesterday. I'm not saying discipline is easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things you ever master, but it's also one of the most freeing. Because once you become disciplined, you no longer have to rely on willpower alone. You don't spend hours debating whether or not to take action. You just do it because it's who you are now. And that identity shift is powerful. When you see yourself as a disciplined person, your actions naturally align with that belief. Some of you right now are waiting for the perfect wave of motivation to hit before you make a move. You're waiting for the right move, the right time, the right conditions. But let me tell you something. If you keep waiting for motivation, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. Start building discipline today. Start by keeping small promises to yourself. Show up for 5 minutes. Do the thing even when you don't feel like it. Over time, those small wins add up and discipline becomes your default mode. The people you admire, the ones who've achieved greatness, they've all mastered discipline. They've learned that feelings come and go, but actions create results. And when you act consistently over time, you create momentum. Momentum makes it easier to keep going. And before you know it, you've crossed milestones you once thought were impossible. So here's the challenge. Stop relying on motivation to carry you. Use it when it's there, sure, but don't depend on it. Build a muscle of discipline so that even on the days when you're tired, uninspired, or frustrated, you still move forward. That's the difference between the people who talk about their dreams and the people who live them. When you embrace discipline over motivation, you take control of your life. You stop being at the mercy of your moods, your circumstances, and your feeling. You start making progress no matter what's happening around you. And over time, that progress compounds into success. Motivation might get you started, but discipline will finish the race. And in the end, it's not about how you felt along the way. It's about what you built because you kept going. Consistency beats talent. Those 3 words can completely change the way you approach your goals if you truly understand them. See, talent is a gift, no doubt about it. Some people are born with an ability to run faster, think quicker, create more beautifully, or perform at a higher level without even breaking a sweat. And because of that, a lot of people assume talent automatically leads to success. But here's the truth. Talent without consistency is wasted potential. You can be the most naturally gifted person in the room, but if you only show up when you feel like it, you'll eventually lose to the person who shows up every single day, rain or shine. Consistency is the great equalizer. It closes the gap between the naturally talented and the average person willing to grind. It's the quiet, often unnoticed, force that builds skill, sharpens ability, and delivers results over time. The thing about consistency is that it's not flashy, it's not dramatic. It's not about the one big performance or the single standout moment. It's about doing the right thing over and over again until the results are undeniable. And because it's not exciting in the moment, a lot of people underestimate it. Think about it like this. Talent is like having a head start in a race. It feels great in the beginning. You're ahead of everyone else with minimal effort. But if you slow down, if you stop training, if you skip practices because you think you're already good enough, the person behind you who's been running steadily, never missing a day, will catch up and eventually pass you. That's what happens in life and in business and in every field. The people who are consistent keep gaining ground, while the talented but inconsistent fall behind. I've seen it in school, in sports, and career. The people with average talent but insane consistency are the ones who end up excelling. Why? Because every day they're putting in reps. Every day they're learning, improving, getting sharper. And while the talented person might be on and off depending on their mood, the consistent person is building a habit, and habits turn into mastery. The thing about talent is that it can make you comfortable. If you're naturally good at something, it's easy to believe you don't have to work as hard. You start relying on your gift instead of developing it. And over time, that comfort turns into complacency. Meanwhile, the consistent grinder is out there pushing themselves, closing the gap inch by inch. And when the day comes for a real test, a competition, a big opportunity, a major challenge, the consistent person is ready because they've been preparing for it every single day, not just when they felt motivated. Consistency also builds trust. trust in yourself, and trust from others. When you're consistent, people know they can rely on you. They know you'll deliver, not just once, but again and again. That reliability opens doors because opportunities often go to those who show up and prove they can be counted on. On the flip side, if you're talented but inconsistent, people can't depend on you. And no matter how good you are at moments, they'll hesitate to give you big responsibilities because they don't know if you'll actually show up when it matters. Another reason consistency beats talent is that it compounds over time. Think about compounding interest in money. Small regular deposits turn into huge amounts over the years. It's the same with effort. Showing up every day, even with small actions, creates massive growth over time. The talented person who only shows up occasionally is making random deposits, so their growth is slow and inconsistent. But the consistent person is making steady deposits, and eventually the gap in results becomes too big to ignore. Now let's be real. Consistency is hard. It's not glamorous. It's not instantly rewarding, and it doesn't always feel like you're making progress. There will be days when you put in the work and see zero results. There will be days when it feels like you're going backward. That's why so many people quit. They want quick wins, and when they don't get them, they stop. But the consistent person understands that the process is the win. They trust that the effort is stacking up, even if they can't see it yet. One of the best examples of consistency beating talent is in the gym. You might see someone with great genetics. They're naturally strong, naturally lean. They work out for a few weeks, look amazing, then disappear for months. Then you see another person who starts out average, nothing impressive, but they show up 3 times a week, every week for years. Fast forward 5 years, and that average person has transformed their body and their strength, while the naturally gifted one is still in the same place or worse. Why? Consistency. The same principle applies to learning a skill. You can have a natural ear for music, but if you don't practice your instrument regularly, you'll never reach your full potential. Meanwhile, someone with less natural talent who practices every single day will surpass you. Talent may set your starting point, but consistency determines your finish line. Another thing about consistency, it builds resilience. When you're showing up every day, you're not just working on your craft. You're training yourself to push through boredom, frustration, and setbacks. You're teaching yourself discipline. And discipline is a muscle that gets stronger the more you use it. Talented people who don't build that discipline often crumble when things get tough because they've never had to grind through long stretches without immediate success. I want you to understand this. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It's not about never missing a day or never making mistakes. It's about showing up more often than not, about making your effort the rule rather than the exception. It's about building a rhythm and sticking to it. And when you slip up, because you will, it's about getting back on track quickly instead of letting one mistake turn into a week, then a month, then a year. Consistency is also about standards. When you commit to being consistent, you set a standard for yourself. And over time, that standard becomes your identity. You stop thinking of yourself as someone who tries and start thinking of yourself as someone who does. You become the person who shows up no matter what. And that identity shift is powerful because it reinforces the habit. It becomes part of who you are. Now, here's the thing. Consistency is boring to watch. It's not going to get you applause in the beginning. In fact, most people won't even notice what you're doing. You'll be putting in work while nobody claps, nobody cheers, and nobody posts about it. But one day, your results will be so obvious, so undeniable, that everyone will assume you just got lucky or have talent. They won't see the months or years of consistent effort that built that success. That's why you can't rely on external validation to keep you going. Your motivation has to come from knowing the long game you're playing. The truth is, talent might get you in the door, but consistency will keep you there. And even if you don't have as much talent as the next person, your consistency can put you ahead. Because when you consistently show up, you learn faster, you make fewer mistakes over time, and you start stacking small wins that lead to big victories. So stop worrying about whether you're the most talented. Stop comparing your natural ability to someone else's. That's not the game you're playing. Your job is to outlast, outwork, and outconsistent them. Show up when they don't. Do the work when they won't. keep going when they stop. And over time, you'll look up and realize that you built something incredible. Not because you were the most gifted, but because you were the most consistent. If you take nothing else from this, remember this. Talent is a blessing, but consistency is a choice. You can't control how much talent you were born with, but you can control how consistently you use what you got. And in the end, it's not the most talented who win. It's the ones who refuse to stop showing up. Resilience and failure is one of those qualities that sounds good when you talk about it, but when you're in the middle of it, when life is hitting you from every direction, when the plan you thought was foolproof falls apart, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever have to live out. Everybody loves the idea of bouncing back until it's their turn to hit the ground. And that's the thing about failure. It's not a matter of if it will happen, it's a matter of when. If you're chasing something meaningful, something worth having, you're going to fail along the way. There's no avoiding it. The difference between the people who eventually succeed and the people who give up is not that one group avoids failure. It's that one group refuses to let failure define them. That's resilience. Failure hurts. Let's not sugarcoat it. It can break your confidence, make you question yourself, make you doubt whether you're even capable of doing what you set out to do. And in those moments, it's tempting to quit. That's why resilience is so important. Resilience is the ability to take the hit, feel the pain, and still choose to get back up. It's the mindset that says, this didn't work out the way I wanted, but it's not the end of the story. The truth is, every person you look up to, every person who has done something extraordinary has a list of failures longer than most people's list of attempts. Now, you don't see that list because what gets remembered is the success they built on top of those failures. Here's the problem. Most of us have been taught to fear failure from a young age. In school, a failing grade is the worst thing you can get. In sports, losing feels like a disaster. In life, making mistakes is something we're embarrassed about. So we grow up thinking failure means we're not good enough. And the moment we experience it, we start retreating, playing small, or avoiding risk altogether. But the truth is, failure is a part of the process. You can't have growth without setbacks. You can't develop mastery without mistakes. Failure is feedback. It's telling you what doesn't work so you can figure out what does. Resilience and failure means shifting your perspective. Instead of looking at failure as a dead end, you see it as a detour. It's not stopping you, it's redirecting you. And sometimes, those redirections are the very thing that lead you to a better opportunity than the one you were chasing. But you'll never know if you quit in the middle of it. That's why resilience is not just about enduring pain. It's about staying curious, staying open, and staying willing to keep moving forward even when the outcome is uncertain. Think about Thomas Edison's side. Most people know him as the man who invented the light bulb. But what they forget is that he failed thousands of times before he got it right. When asked about it, he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's resilience. He didn't attach his identity to the failure. He treated it as information. And because he didn't quit, his name is remembered for innovation instead of for quitting after attempt number 300 or 500 or 2,000. But let's be real. Resilience is not easy. It's not just about getting up after one failure. It's about getting up over and over again when you keep getting knocked down. It's about facing disappointment after disappointment without letting it kill your belief. And that belief is what keeps you going. You have to believe that the setback is temporary, that your ability to grow is bigger than the obstacle in front of you, and that your effort will pay off if you keep pushing. Without that belief, it's too easy to settle into defeat. Here's where a lot of people get stuck. They think resilience means pretending they're not hurt by failure. But resilience doesn't mean you don't feel the sting. It means you feel it, you process it, you learn from it, and then you keep going. There's nothing weak about feeling disappointed, frustrated, or even angry when things don't work out. Those emotions are natural. The key is not letting them trap you in place. Feel them, but don't live in them. Resilience also means not letting other people's opinions about your failures define your path. The world is quick to label people who fail. They'll call you a loser. They'll tell you to give up. They'll act like one setback erases everything you've ever done. If you let their voices get in your head, you'll start believing them. But remember, They don't get to write your story. They don't see the vision you have, the work you put in, or the lessons you're learning along the way. The only way they get to be right is if you stop. I'll tell you something else. Resilience is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The first time you fail, it might crush you. You might want to disappear. But if you get back up, the next time it happens, it's a little easier to stand. And over time, you stop fearing failure as much because you know you can survive it. That's a powerful place to be, because when you're not afraid of failing, you're willing to take bigger risks. And bigger risks often lead to bigger rewards. One of the most dangerous things you can do is let one failure stop you completely. I've seen people with incredible talent give up after one big setback, and years later they're still talking about, oh, what could have been. They let one chapter define the whole book. But the truth is, failure is just one scene in the story. You can still write the rest. You can still decide how it ends. But you have to keep turning the pages, and you can only do that if you refuse to stay down. Resilience and failure is also about adapting. Sometimes bouncing back doesn't mean doing the exact same thing, the exact same way. Sometimes it means adjusting your approach, changing your strategy, or learning a new skill. The goal isn't to stubbornly repeat the same mistake. The goal is to use the lessons you've learned to come back smarter and stronger. That's what makes the comeback even more powerful. You're not just the same person getting up. You're a wiser, tougher version of yourself. There's also a deeper reward to resilience. Every time you push through a failure, you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. You expand your own belief in what's possible. And that belief becomes a weapon you can use the next time life tries to knock you down. You start thinking, I've been through worse and I'm still standing. I can get through this too. That's not arrogance. That's confidence built from surviving storms. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Resilience doesn't guarantee immediate success. You might fail 5 times, 10 times, 50 times before you finally get the breakthrough you want. But if you stay in the fight, you give yourself a chance. If you quit, you remove that chance entirely. And that's why resilience is so valuable. It keeps you in the game long enough for success to show up. In the end, resilience and failure is about perspective, belief, and action. It's about refusing to let a single moment dictate the rest of your life. It's about looking at every setback as a step, not a stop. And it's about showing up over and over again, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. That's how champions are made. Not because they never lose, but because they never let a loss be the last word. You have to decide right now that failure is not going to scare you away from greatness. You have to decide that no matter how many times you fall, you will rise one more time. And if you can live with that mindset, there is nothing, no setback, no obstacle, no loss that can keep you from becoming everything you are meant to be. Discipline over motivation is one of the most misunderstood keys to greatness, because a lot of people think success is about a feeling like it every day. They wait for inspiration. They wait for the right mood, the perfect moment, or that magical rush of energy that will push them into action. But here's the truth. If you only work when you're motivated, you'll be inconsistent, and inconsistency kills progress. Motivation is great when it shows up, but it's unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. Some days you wake up ready to conquer the world, and other days you wake up wanting to pull the covers back over your head. If you want to build something lasting, you can't let your effort depend on your mood. That's where discipline comes in. Discipline is the ability to show up and do the work even when you don't feel like it. It's the quiet, steady force that keeps you moving forward when excitement fades, when the work feels boring, and when the results seem far away. Motivation is an emotion. Discipline is a decision. And decisions are more powerful because they're not based on how you feel in the moment. They're based on a commitment you made long before the moment arrived when you build your life. When you build your life around discipline, you take control back from your emotion. You're no longer at the mercy of a Jew. I feel like it. You've decided, I'm doing it no matter what. This is why so many people start strong and fade out. At the beginning of a goal, they're motivated. They've got energy, excitement, and a clear vision. But then life gets in the way. Things get hard. The newness wears off. And when that happens, they slow down or stop altogether because they were relying on motivation to carry them. The people who win long term are the ones who replace that need for constant motivation with a habit of discipline. Think about athletes at the highest level. Do you think every morning they wake up thrilled to train? No, there are days they're sore, tired, and mentally drained, but they still get up, still push themselves, because their performance is built on discipline. They understand that greatness is the result of doing the right things repeatedly over time, not just when it's convenient or exciting. Here's the thing. Motivation can help you start, but discipline keeps you going. And the longer you keep going, the more results you see. The more results you see, the more momentum you build. Momentum is when your progress starts fueling itself. But you don't get there if you stop every time you're not feeling it. The secret is to act your way into feeling instead of waiting to feel your way into acting. Some of your best work will come on the days you least feel like working, simply because you pushed through and did it anyway. Discipline is also tied to consistency, and consistency compounds over time. If you do a small thing every day, it may not feel like much in the moment, but over months and years, it turns into something huge. Think of a musician practicing scales daily, a writer putting down a few pages every morning, or a business owner making one more call each afternoon. On any single day, the difference might be invisible, but discipline turns those small daily actions into big, long-term wins. Motivation won't keep you doing that for years. Discipline will. One of the biggest mistakes people make is treating discipline like a personality trait instead of a skill. They say, I'm just not disciplined, as if it's something you're either born with or not. But discipline is something you build. You start with small commitments, keep them, and gradually raise the bar. Every time you follow through on something you say you do, you strengthen your ability to keep doing it. Just like a muscle, the more you use discipline, the stronger it gets. You know, the reason discipline is more powerful than motivation is that it keeps you from being controlled by excuses. Motivation will disappear the moment an excuse shows up. I'm tired. It's raining. I don't have time. Discipline ignores the excuse and does it anyway. And here's the funny thing. Once you start doing a thing, even when you did one you didn't want to, you often end up feeling better. You feel proud because you didn't let the excuse win. That builds self-respect, and self-respect is a massive driver of future success. People think discipline is restrictive, but it's actually freeing. When you live by discipline, you no longer have to waste energy deciding every day whether you're going to do the work or not. The decision has already been made. It's not up for debate. That mental clarity frees you to focus on the action itself instead of wrestling with your own resistance. And the more you follow through, the more you trust yourself. That trust becomes a powerful cycle. The more you keep your word to yourself, the more confident you are in your ability to tackle bigger challenges. If you look at anyone who's achieved greatness in any field, you'll see discipline at the core. Writers who publish multiple bestsellers don't wait for their muse to inspire them. They sit down and write daily. Entrepreneurs who build thriving companies don't only work when the market is favorable. They keep grinding through downturns and setbacks. Musicians don't practice only when they're in the mood. They rehearse whether they're inspired or not. In every case, it's discipline that builds the skill, the habits, and the persistence needed to reach the top. But let's be clear. Discipline doesn't mean you become a robot. It's not about never feeling tired, never needing rest, or never adjusting your plan. It's about showing up and doing what matters most, even when it's hard, while still being smart about recovery and adaptation. There's a difference between discipline and burnout. True discipline is sustainable because it's built on intentional habits, not reckless overexertion. One of the best ways to build discipline is to connect it to your why. If your only reason for doing something is to feel good, you'll stop when it stops feeling good. But if you have a deep reason, a purpose that matters to you, then discipline becomes easier because it's tied to something bigger than the discomfort of the moment. When you remind yourself why you started, it's easier to push through the days you don't feel like it. You also have to accept that discipline often works in silence. It's not glamorous. It's not flashy. A lot of the work you do with discipline will go unnoticed for a long time. But that's okay, because discipline isn't about impressing others. It's about delivering results, and results will eventually speak for themselves. The people who succeed aren't the ones posting their motivation every day. They're the ones quietly putting in the work while others talk about it. Motivation might get you moving, but discipline gets you across the finish line. And when you understand that, you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start creating the moment through action. You learn that discipline is a choice you make daily, sometimes hourly, and that every time you choose it over comfort, you get a little closer to the greatness you're chasing. So the next time you don't feel like doing the thing you said you do, remind yourself your feelings aren't in charge. Your commitment is. You're not here to be ruled by moods or fleeting bursts of energy. You're here to be consistent, to show up, and to honor your goals with action. That's how you separate yourself from the crowd. Not by being the most motivated person in the room, but by being the most disciplined. Because when motivation fades, and it will, discipline is what keeps you moving forward. And if you can master that, you can build anything, achieve anything, and become anything you set your mind to. Adaptability to change is one of the most crucial skills for achieving greatness, yet it's one of the most resisted. People like comfort. They like familiarity. They like routines that feel safe and predictable. But the reality is, the world doesn't care about your comfort zone. Life changes. Markets shift. Technology evolves. Opportunities appear and disappear. Challenges emerge from places you never expected. And if you can't adapt, you get left behind. No matter how talented, educated, or hardworking you are. Greatness isn't about locking yourself into one way of doing things. It's about being flexible enough to adjust when circumstances demand it, while still staying true to your ultimate vision. A lot of people confuse adaptability with inconsistency. They think adapting means abandoning your principles or constantly switching directions just because something gets hard. But that's not it. Adaptability isn't about changing who you are. It's about changing your approach when the current approach isn't working. The goal remains the same. The path might shift. You might have to take a detour, try a different strategy, learn a new skill, or work with different tools. If you're too rigid to do that, you'll break the moment life throws something unexpected your way. The truth is, change is inevitable. No matter how much you prepare, there will be moments that catch you off guard. You might have a business plan that looks perfect on paper, only for the market to suddenly shift. You might have a career path that feels solid, only for your industry to face disruption from new technology. You might have personal goals lined up, only for life circumstances to change. A health issue, a family need, or an economic downturn. The people who continue to rise in the face of these changes are not necessarily the ones who had the most resources to start with. They're the ones who could pivot quickly without losing momentum. Think about the difference between a tree that snaps in the wind and one that bends. The rigid tree breaks because it refuses to give way. The flexible tree bends, absorbs the pressure, and springs back when the storm passes. Adaptability works the same way. It doesn't mean you're weak or uncertain. It means you're strong enough to survive the storm without destroying yourself in the process. In fact, in most cases, adaptability is a sign of strength, not weakness. History is full of examples of people and companies that either rose or fell, depending on their adaptability. Blockbuster video dominated movie rentals, but refused to adapt when streaming started gaining traction. Netflix, on the other hand, started as a DVD rental service and pivoted to stream before anyone else fully saw the opportunity. That adaptability didn't just help them survive, it made them a global leader in entertainment. The difference wasn't who worked harder or who had more money at the start. The difference was who was willing to change when the game changed. At the individual level, adaptability often comes down to mindset. A fixed mindset resists change because it sees it as a threat. It thinks if things change, I might fail. I might look stupid. I might lose what I built. A growth mindset embraces change because it sees it as an opportunity. It thinks if things change, I can learn something new. I can get better. I can find a new way forward. The mindset you choose will determine how you react when life forces you into unfamiliar territory. Adaptability also means being a student for life. You can't think you've made it and stop learning. If you do, you'll eventually find yourself using outdated skills and outdated thinking in a world that's moved on without you. The people who stay relevant are the ones who constantly update their knowledge, seek out new perspectives, and aren't afraid to admit when they need to learn something different. The more you learn, the easier it is to adapt because you've already built the habit of adjusting to new information. One of the biggest enemies of adaptability is ego. When you're too proud to admit you need to change, you get stuck. You tell yourself, I've been doing it this way for years and it's always worked. But the truth is, what worked yesterday might not work today, and it definitely might not work tomorrow. Greatness requires humility. The humility to say, I don't have all the answers, and I might need to do this differently. That humility is what opens the door to innovation, improvement, and long-term success. Another part of adaptability is speed. The faster you can recognize that something has changed and adjust accordingly, the better your chances of thriving. Some people see change coming and freeze. They wait too long, hoping things will go back to the way they were. But change rarely reverses. It moves forward. If you're waiting for things to go back to normal, you might be waiting forever. The people who succeed are the ones who respond quickly, test new ideas, and take calculated risks before everyone else catches up. Adaptability also involves letting go of the fear of failure. When you try something new, there's always a chance it won't work. But if you let that fear keep you from trying, you'll be stuck with what's safe. And what's safe is often what's shrinking. In a world that's constantly evolving, standing still is the fastest way to fall behind. The irony is, the more you adapt, the less scary failure becomes, because you start to see it as part of the process. If something doesn't work, you don't see it as a dead end. You see it as feedback for your next move. Sometimes adaptability is about scaling back, not just pushing forward. People often think adapting means adding more strategies, more work, more tools. But sometimes the smartest adaptation is simplifying, stripping away the things that no longer serve you so you can focus on what actually works in the new situation. That might mean cutting expenses in a business, streamlining your schedule in your personal life, or letting go of outdated goals that no longer align with where you are. Adaptability also thrives in environments where you surround yourself with different perspectives. If you're only around people who think like you, you'll be blind to other ways of doing things. If you intentionally seek out people from different backgrounds, industries, and experiences, you open yourself up to ideas you never would have come up with on your own. That diversity of thought makes you more resilient in the face of change because you have more tools, strategies, and insights to draw from. One of the most underrated benefits of adaptability is that it keeps you from becoming irrelevant. Think about how quickly trends change in technology, culture, and business. A person who refuses to adapt ends up using old methods in a world that's moved on. But a person who embraces change stays in the conversation, stays relevant, and stays valuable no matter what the landscape looks like. Adaptability is also a confidence builder. The more you prove to yourself that you can handle change, the less anxious you feel when it happens again. You start to believe, whatever comes, I can figure it out. That's a powerful mindset because it allows you to approach uncertainty with curiosity instead of fear. And when you're not afraid of change, you can take bigger swings, explore new opportunity, and innovate without holding back. Ultimately, adaptability to change is about survival, but it's also about positioning yourself to win. The most successful people don't just survive change. They use it to their advantage. They spot opportunities others miss because they're too busy clinging to the old way of doing things. They treat change like a wave. Instead of standing still and getting knocked over, they learn to ride it. If you want greatness, you have to train yourself to see change not as a disruption, but as a chance to grow, to learn, and to get better. You have to be willing to evolve your methods while keeping your vision intact. You have to let go of what no longer works and reach for what will work now. That's the difference between the people who fade and the people who rise. The ones who rise aren't the ones who avoided change. They're the ones who mastered it. Resilience in the face of setbacks is one of the most defining traits of truly great individuals. Everybody loves to talk about success, about the victories, about the highlight reels. But what people don't always see is the string of failures, disappointments, and painful moments that came before those wins. Greatness isn't built in the easy time, it's forged in the difficult ones. It's not about how you perform when everything is going your way. It's about how you respond when the plan falls apart, when doors slam shut in your face, and when you're knocked to the ground over and over again. Resilience is the ability to stand back up every single time, no matter how many times you've been knocked down. The truth is, no matter how smart, talented, or hardworking you are, setbacks are inevitable. You will face rejection. You will have ideas that don't work out. You will lose opportunities you thought were guaranteed. You will have moments where it feels like everything you built is crumbling. And in those moments, your success depends on one thing: your ability to keep going. Resilience is what separates the people who make it from the people who give up too soon. Resilience doesn't mean you never feel hurt, frustrated, or discouraged. It doesn't mean you're some kind of emotionless machine that brushes off pain. It means you acknowledge the pain, but you don't let it stop you. You process it, you learn from it, and then you keep moving forward. You treat setbacks as part of the process rather than as proof that you should quit. People who lack resilience see a setback as a signal that they've reached the end of the road. People with resilience see it as a bend in the road, an obstacle to navigate, not a reason to turn back. The most resilient people have a deep understanding that failure isn't final unless you choose to make it final. A failed attempt doesn't mean you are a failure. It means you're in the process of learning something that will make you stronger. Some of the greatest achievements in history came from people who endured failure after failure before finally breaking through. Thomas Edison famously said, that's resilience in action. Refusing to let setbacks define you, instead using them as stepping stones toward your goal. Resilience is also about perspective. When something goes wrong, your immediate reaction might be to see it as a disaster. But if you take a step back, you might see that this setback is actually an opportunity in disguise. Maybe it's teaching you a skill you'll need later. Maybe it's forcing you to refine your approach. Maybe it's redirecting you towards something better than what you originally wanted. People who lack resilience only see what they've lost. People who have resilience see what they can gain from the experience. Another key to resilience is emotional regulation, the ability to manage your emotions so they don't control your actions. Setbacks can trigger frustration, anger, sadness, or fear. If you let those emotions drive your decisions, you might quit too early or make choices you'll regret. Resilient people feel those emotions, but don't let them take the wheel. They take time to breathe, think, and act deliberately instead of impulsively. This allows them to stay in the game longer and make better decisions under pressure. Resilience is also built through self-belief. If you don't believe you can overcome challenges, you won't even try. Resilient people have a deep trust in their own ability to adapt and figure things out. That belief isn't blind optimism. It's built on a track record of surviving tough times. Every time you get through something hard, you add a layer to your confidence. You start to realize, if I made it through that, I can make it through this. Community and support systems also play a big role in resilience. The strongest people in the world aren't necessarily the ones who fight alone. They're the ones who know when to lean on others. Friends, mentors, colleagues, and family can provide perspective, encouragement, and resources that help you push through setbacks. Being resilient doesn't mean you never ask for help. It means you're willing to do whatever it takes to keep going, including seeking support when you need it. One of the most powerful aspects of resilience is the way it transforms setbacks into fuel. Instead of letting failure drain them, resilient people let it motivate them. They use the frustration, the rejection, and the disappointment as energy to push harder. They turn "I can't believe this happened" into "I'm going to make sure this never happens again." Or "I'm going to prove to myself that I can come back stronger." This mindset turns what could have been a stopping point into a launch pad. Resilience also means being patient with the process. Some setbacks take time to recover from, and that's okay. Resilient people understand that not every comeback is instant. Sometimes you have to rebuild slowly, piece by piece. They're willing to put in the time without getting discouraged by the fact that progress feels slow. They know that as long as they're moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time, they're winning. There's also a connection between resilience and adaptability. When a setback happens, you can't always just keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. Sometimes resilience means being willing to change your strategy, your environment, or your approach. It's the combination of persistence and flexibility that allows you to find a way forward when the original path is blocked. Resilience thrives on clarity of purpose. If you know why you're doing something, you're much less likely to give up when things get hard. Your why acts like an anchor that keeps you steady during the storms. Without it, setbacks feel like random, pointless suffering. With it, they feel like challenges you're willing to face because the goal matters enough to endure them. The reality is, resilience is built in the small moments as much as the big one. Every time you push through a minor inconvenience, keep a promise to yourself, or face something uncomfortable instead of avoiding it, you're strengthening your resilience muscle. Then, when a major setback comes, you already have the mental and emotional strength to deal with it. People who wait until disaster strikes to practice resilience often find themselves overwhelmed, but those who train for it daily are ready when it counts. The beauty of resilience is that it turns you into the kind of person who can't be easily defeated. Life can hit you with disappointments, but it can't keep you down. Every setback you face becomes another layer of armor, another story of survival, another reminder of your own strength. Over time, you stop fearing setbacks because you know you can handle them. And when you stop fearing them, you stop playing small. You start taking bigger risks, going after bigger goals, and living a bigger life. Ultimately, resilience in the face of setbacks isn't just about surviving tough times, it's about using them to grow. It's about coming out the other side, not just intact, but stronger, wiser, and more capable than before. That's the real power of resilience. It doesn't just get you through the storm, it turns you into the kind of person who can handle any storm. And when you have that kind of strength, there's nothing, no setback, no obstacle, no failure that can keep you from the greatness you're destined to achieve. Discipline and daily habits are the invisible engines that power greatness. Talent may open the door. Opportunity might give you a head start. Passion can light the fire, but without discipline, none of it lasts. Discipline is the ability to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. It's showing up consistently, putting in the work, and following through on your commitments to yourself and others, regardless of whether motivation is present. Daily habits are the small, repeated actions that, over time, shape your entire life. Together, discipline and habits determine whether your potential turns into real results or remains an unfulfilled possibility. Most people think greatness is about big moments. The championship game, the record-breaking performance, the huge breakthrough. But those moments are just the visible tip of an iceberg built on thousands of small, unseen actions. It's the early mornings, the late nights, the hours spent practicing when nobody's watching. It's the choice to eat the right meal instead of the easy one, to read a book instead of scrolling endlessly, to train when it's raining instead of waiting for perfect weather. These daily choices, repeated over time, become habits, and habits, good or bad, create your future. Discipline is what keeps you going long after the excitement fades. Motivation is fleeting. It's easy to feel fired up at the beginning of a new goal, but that feeling doesn't last forever. There will be days when you're tired, when life gets busy, when distractions pull at your attention. Without discipline, those days derail your progress. With discipline, you push through anyway, knowing that consistency is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Daily habits work because they take discipline and make it automatic. At first, it takes effort to stick to a new behavior, whether that's exercising, meditating, studying, or working on a skill. But the more you repeat it, the less mental energy it takes. It becomes part of your routine, something you do without negotiating with yourself. That's the real magic of habits. They allow you to make progress without relying on willpower every single time. The flip side is also true. Bad habits work against you automatically. If you have the habit of procrastinating, of eating poorly, of wasting time on things that don't matter, those habits compound just like good ones do, but in the wrong direction. Greatness requires intentionally building habits that align with your goals, not just drifting into whatever is easiest in the moment. One of the most important things discipline teaches you is delayed gratification. In a world that constantly offers instant rewards, likes on social media, quick entertainment, fast food, discipline is the ability to say, I'm willing to wait for something better. It's resisting the temptation of what you want now for the sake of what you want most. That mindset is rare, but it's essential for long-term success. The greatest achievements often take years to build, and without discipline, you won't last long enough to see them through. Discipline also creates trust in yourself. Every time you follow through on something you said you do, you send a message to your brain. I can count on myself. Over time, that trust becomes confidence. You start to believe in your ability to tackle bigger challenges because you've proven through your habits that you'll do the work required. On the other hand, every time you break a commitment to yourself, you weaken that trust. That's why self-discipline isn't just about productivity. It's about self-respect. Another key point is that discipline doesn't mean perfection. You don't have to execute perfectly every single day to build great habits. What matters is that you're consistent enough that your average performance moves you forward. Too many people quit because they miss one day or have one setback. Discipline means getting back on track quickly instead of letting one missed day turn into a missed week or month. It's the ability to reset without beating yourself up. Building discipline starts with structure. You can't rely on I'll get to it when I feel like it, because you won't always feel like it. Create routines that lock in the actions you need to take. Set specific times for your priorities. Remove unnecessary decisions by planning in advance. The less you leave to chance, the easier it is to follow through. Willpower is limited, but structure pushes you when motivation fades. Daily habits compound in ways you often don't notice until much later. Doing one workout won't make you fit. Reading one chapter won't make you wise. Saving a small amount of money won't make you wealthy. But doing those things every day for years changes everything. This compounding effect works slowly at first, then accelerates. By the time others notice your results, the habits have already been in place for a long time. That's why discipline often feels unrewarding in the short term. The payoff comes much later, but it's worth it. It's also important to understand that discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. You're not born with it or without it. You develop it by practicing it. The more you exercise discipline in small things, the easier it becomes to apply it to bigger challenges. Start with manageable habits, then gradually increase the difficulty. Just like muscles, your discipline grows with use. Accountability can strengthen discipline. When someone else knows your goals and can check in on your progress, you're less likely to skip your commitments. This could be a coach, a training partner, a mentor, or even just a friend. Publicly committing to something adds pressure in a good way, helping you stick to your habits until they're ingrained. One thing people often misunderstand is that discipline can actually create freedom. At first, it feels restrictive to have a set routine or strict habits. But over time, those habits free you from the chaos of inconsistency. They give you control over your results instead of leaving them to chance. If you've ever had your day run completely off track because you didn't have a plan, you know that a lack of discipline doesn't make life freer. It makes it more stressful. Discipline also builds resilience. When you train yourself to do hard things daily, you become better at handling challenges in general. A disciplined athlete can push through fatigue and competition because they've done it countless times in training. A disciplined entrepreneur can endure business setbacks. It's because they built the habit of problem solving every day. Discipline conditions your mind to push forward even when it's uncomfortable. The connection between discipline and identity is powerful. Every habit you practice is a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. If you consistently write every day, you reinforce the identity of I'm a writer. If you train daily, you reinforce I'm an athlete. Discipline turns actions into identity and identity into consistency. When something becomes part of who you are, it's much easier to maintain it. Discipline and daily habits aren't glamorous, but they are the foundation of greatness. They're the quiet, steady work that nobody applauds in a moment, but that everybody admires when they see the results. They're the reason some people keep rising while others fade after their initial burst of motivation. If you want to achieve anything truly meaningful, you have to be willing to show up for it every single day, whether you feel like it or not. That's discipline. And when discipline meets the right daily habits, greatness stops being a possibility. It becomes inevitable.